Hey guys, tonight we're going to take a slow, winding journey through a world without paper money. That's right. Before the crisp bills you might fold into your wallet, before the plastic cards and blinking digital balances, there was a time when wealth, well, a lot heavier. You can almost feel the weight of it in your hands, can't you? A pouch full of clinking coins, or maybe even a handful of grain if you were bartering. The air is thick with the scent of sweat, spices, and dust kicked up from the busy marketplace, where merchants shout over one another, haggling for fish, fabric, and furs. The sun hangs low, casting long shadows across cobbled streets, and your feet ache from walking on uneven stones. A vendor waves a basket of figs at you, promising they're the freshest in the city, though between us, they look like they've seen better days. The smell of roasted meat drifts through the air, making your stomach grumble. But you hesitate. Do you really want to pay for dinner with a silver coin the size of a saucer? Imagine if you had to carry around enough coins to buy a whole camel. Your pockets would jingle like a tambourine, and good luck trying to run from bandits. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive in this economy. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it right now? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wander deeper into the heart of the market, where the noise grows louder and the smells become almost overwhelming. A mingling of sweet dates, sharp vinegar, and, of course, a faint tang of donkey dung. Coins flash in the sun as merchants weigh out silver on tiny scales, their eyes narrowing suspiciously at every transaction. One old man squints at a coin, then bites it, because apparently that's how you test for fakes when you don't have a magnifying glass. The whole system feels clunky, doesn't it? Coins are heavy, easy to steal, and you can't exactly make change if you're trading a lump of gold for a sack of onions. Some traders, the clever ones, have started writing little notes to each other. Promises, really. I owe you this much silver. You can trust me. It sounds absurd at first. Why trust a piece of paper over the real thing? But when your back is sore from carrying 10 pounds of copper, the idea starts to look tempting. A little like when your phone runs out of storage and suddenly the cloud doesn't sound so bad. As you shuffle past a group of children playing dice on the ground, you notice a merchant who seems unusually light on his feet. He moves between stalls with ease, not weighed down by a pouch of coins. You catch a glimpse of a folded piece of parchment in his hand, thin, worn at the edges. Could it be? A paper note in a world of metal? He tucks it away quickly, glancing around like someone guarding a secret. And here's where things get really strange, because that little scrap of paper, it's worth more than you might think. Not because it has gold in it, but because it says so. Some ruler somewhere decided that this slip of paper had value. Just declared it. Like when your teacher announces a pop quiz. Sudden, unexpected, and impossible to argue with. And yet, somehow, it works. For now. Of course, not everyone's convinced. Some merchants refused to touch the stuff, muttering about scams and trickery. Others clutched their paper notes like a secret stash of candy, hoping no one else figures it out. It's a strange in-between time, a world still tangled in the weight of metal coins, but with whispers of a future where money could weigh nothing at all. As the sun dips lower, casting a golden glow over the market, you feel a shift in the air. It's not just the breeze stirring your hair. It's the beginning of something new. You pause for a moment, wondering, if money could be written on paper, what else might change? But for now, you brush the thought aside. There's a fig vendor calling you over, waving a slightly squashed fruit with an apologetic grin. You sigh, hand over a coin heavier than your willpower, and bite into the sticky sweetness. And as the juice dribbles down your chin, you wonder, isn't it odd that something as important as money could ever be so inconvenient? And so you keep walking, the weight of coins jingling in your pocket, not yet knowing that soon, sooner than anyone expects, a scrap of paper could change everything. The next morning, the market feels quieter, but your legs still ache from all that wandering. The coins in your pouch seem even heavier than before, each one pressing against your side like a reminder of the world's stubbornness. As you step through the narrow alleys, you notice a group of traders hunched over a cart, muttering in low voices. Their hands move quickly. One man counts coins, while another scribbles something on a piece of parchment. The paper crackles under his fingers, as if it's nervous to be here. You inch closer, pretending to admire the faded spices and slightly wilted herbs, but you're really eavesdropping. A woman leans in, whispering, "It's too much to carry. We'll use his note." Her voice is sharp, like she's chewing on a secret. You glance at the paper again, realizing it's not some elaborate contract. It's just a promise, a little scrawl of ink saying, "This is worth something." And yet, everyone around her seems to nod, as if this flimsy scrap is just as good as a pouch full of silver. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? A simple convenience for traders. But no, the world of money is never that simple. The thing about coins is they're heavy, sure, but at least they feel real, solid. There's a clink when they hit the table, a satisfying weight in your hand. Paper, it flutters, it rips, it doesn't even make a decent sound when you flick it across the table. And let's be honest, if you drop a coin in the dirt, you'll probably bend down to pick it up. A paper note? Well, unless you know its value, it might just blow away. That's why in the beginning, paper wasn't trusted by everyone. Some merchants grumbled that it was just a scheme, a way for the government to control the market. Others muttered that it was a trap, that one day they'd be holding a worthless slip of paper and no way to get their silver back. And you know what? They weren't entirely wrong. Governments can be unpredictable. Like that time your favorite bakery suddenly raised prices, and now you're paying twice as much for a cinnamon roll that's somehow half the size. That's what happens when someone else controls the value of what's in your hand. But here's the thing. Carrying coins was a logistical nightmare, especially if you were a merchant traveling long distances. Picture yourself on a dusty road, a cart full of silk and spices, jingling with coins that clink like alarm bells for every bandit in a 100-mile radius. Not exactly the safest way to travel, is it? That's where the idea of paper money started to make sense. A simple note, light as a feather, could be folded into a pocket, hidden in a shoe, or even slipped under a hat. You could cross rivers, mountains, and deserts without the constant clanking and the fear that your wealth might spill onto the ground and disappear in the dirt. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were stories. Oh, there were always stories. Like the tale of a merchant who tried to pay for an entire shipment of grain with paper notes only to be laughed out of the marketplace. Or the old legend about a village that burned down, and with it all the paper money stored in a chest. Poof, gone in a puff of smoke. Paper might weigh less than coins, but it burns a whole lot faster. And yet, somehow, the idea kept growing. You can almost feel it, can't you? That quiet shift in the air, like the world itself is tilting towards something new. Paper money wasn't born out of pure genius. It was born out of necessity, out of the simple fact that sometimes carrying metal just doesn't make sense. It's like trying to store all your photos in physical albums instead of on your phone. Sure, the albums feel nice, but good luck hauling them around when you travel. What's funny is, the people who first used paper money weren't trying to start a revolution. They were just tired of lugging around coins the size of biscuits. They didn't know they were setting the stage for a whole new world of trade and power. They just wanted to make life a little easier. And isn't that how most big changes happen? Not with a grand plan, but with a small act of convenience. You keep walking, your pouch of coins digging into your side like an annoying little reminder. And as you glance back at the traders whispering over their scraps of paper, you wonder, could this really be the future? Could something as fragile as paper hold the weight of an entire economy? The question hangs in the air, as heavy as the coins in your pocket, and yet, somehow, impossibly light. The sun creeps higher, warming the cobbled streets beneath your feet, and the smell of the market shifts. Less roasted meat now, more of that sharp tang of vinegar from pickled vegetables, and something vaguely fishy. You wrinkle your nose as you pass a stall selling dried shrimp. A seagull flaps down and nearly snatches a piece right out of a basket, its wings stirring up dust and feathers in your face. You bat them away, wondering, not for the first time, how anyone managed to get through a day without their hands full of problems, be it seagulls, merchants, or those endlessly clinking coins. You glance down at the pouch on your hip, feeling it swinging awkwardly with each step. There's a certain weight to wealth in this world, isn't there? It's not just the coins themselves. It's the burden of counting them, guarding them, and, frankly, the constant risk of losing them to a particularly bold street urchin. You saw it happen just yesterday. A boy barely 10 years old darted past a merchant, snatched a pouch from his belt, and disappeared into the crowd before the poor man could even shout. You can't help but feel a little impressed. If only he'd chosen a career in accounting instead of petty theft, he might have been the one inventing paper money. But no, the world wasn't quite ready for that. Not yet. The idea of using paper as currency still felt risky, fragile. You hear it in the mutterings of the older merchants. gruff men with hands like cracked leather and eyes that squint at every new idea. Paper tears, one of them grumbles. Can't melt it down for scrap. Can't weigh it. Can't trust it. He slaps a fat silver coin onto the table with a thud that makes you jump. This, he says, is real. And honestly, he's got a point. But as you stroll past another stall, this one selling fine silk from distant lands, you notice a young merchant with an air of quiet confidence. He folds a piece of parchment with practiced ease, slipping it into the sleeve of his robe. You catch a glimpse of the character stamped onto it, faint and curling at the edges. It's not just any scrap of paper. It's an exchange note, a promise backed by the local guild, or maybe even the government. You can almost see the tension in the air between old ways and new. The clink of coins like thunder, the soft rustle of paper like a breeze sneaking in through the cracks.
It makes you wonder, what would it take for people to really trust this flimsy alternative? To believe that a piece of paper could hold the same weight as a pouch of silver? Maybe an emperor's approval. That would do it, wouldn't it? If the most powerful man in the land, surrounded by guards, silk, and incense, declared that paper had value, who would dare argue? It's like when your favorite food place suddenly starts selling vegan options. At first, everyone grumbles, but then the lines get longer, and you realize, maybe they're onto something. Still, you can't help but think about the risks. Paper is easy to forge, isn't it? You glance at a man carving tiny stamps into blocks of wood, his hands stained with ink. The smell of it lingers in the air, sharp, almost metallic. He's crafting seals for merchants, each one unique, but you wonder how long it'll be before someone figures out how to copy them. Maybe they already have. After all, where there's money, there's mischief. It's a universal law, like the way socks mysteriously vanish from laundry baskets, or how the moment you wash your hair, it rains. A sudden gust of wind sweeps through the street, lifting a few scraps of parchment into the air. You watch them twist and flutter, some catching on market stalls, others tumbling into the gutter. There's something almost poetic about it, isn't there? Wealth drifting like leaves in the wind, light and fleeting. You wonder if the old merchants, the ones who cling to their coins, can feel it too, that something's shifting, whether they like it or not. And yet here you are, still clutching your heavy pouch of coins, still watching the strange dance of paper and ink begin to take hold. The air smells of roasted chestnuts now, and you pause to buy a small bag, the paper crinkling in your hands. It's a reminder, in a way, that paper, for all its flaws, has a certain magic. It carries weight without mass, meaning without metal. And as you munch on a chestnut, warm and sweet, you wonder, maybe the world is ready for something new. Or, like always, it's just fumbling its way there, one awkward step at a time. As you crunch down the last of your chestnuts, brushing the crumbs from your fingers, you wander further into the market, where the air feels thicker, heavier somehow, like the air just before a storm. The crowd hums with a kind of nervous energy, traders eyeing one another with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. And there, at the far end of the square, beneath a tattered red awning, you spot something new.
A man seated at a low wooden table, surrounded by neat stacks of paper. Not parchment for scribbling poems, not scrolls for scholars. This is paper money, real paper money. You can almost hear the collective intake of breath from the merchants nearby. You edge closer, pretending to admire a basket of dried apricots, but really, you're staring at the paper. It's thin, almost fragile looking, stamped with bright red ink and official-looking symbols. There's something oddly ceremonial about it, like an invitation to a royal feast or a wedding announcement. Except instead of love or celebration, it's a promise of value. You can't help but wonder how something so flimsy could ever replace the cold certainty of coins. It's like replacing a sturdy iron pot with a teacup made of spun sugar. Sure, it's lighter, but would you really want to cook your dinner in it? And the man at the table speaks softly, almost like a priest in a temple, explaining how the emperor himself has approved this new currency. His voice is calm, measured, like he's reciting from a sacred text. You notice the merchants leaning in, their brows furrowed, arms crossed. Some nod slowly, others scoff, shaking their heads as if swatting away a fly. One grumbles under his breath about how the emperor might as well declare that fish can fly. Just because someone in silk robes says it's true doesn't make it so. And yet, there's a flicker of something in their eyes. Curiosity, maybe. Or the uncomfortable sense that the world might just be changing under their feet. You shift your weight, feeling the coins in your pouch press into your hip like a stubborn child refusing to budge. The man at the table continues, telling stories of how merchants in distant provinces have already begun using the notes, how trade is faster, lighter, safer. Safer? That seems like a stretch. After all, a gust of wind could scatter your wealth across the countryside like confetti at a wedding. And you have to wonder, what happens if the paper gets wet? Does it melt into a soggy mess, like that time you left your grocery list in your pocket and it turned into a pulpy blob? Not exactly the most secure way to store your fortune.
But still, there's something about the way the man speaks, the quiet conviction in his voice. He leans forward, tapping the table with a single finger, and says, "It's not just paper, it's trust." That word hangs in the air like incense smoke, curling around your thoughts. Trust. That's the real currency, isn't it? Always has been. Whether it's the trust that a coin is pure silver, or the trust that a paper note is backed by the emperor's word, or even the trust that the fig vendor isn't selling you fruit that's already half rotten. Without trust, the whole system crumbles. You can almost hear the scribes in the palace arguing about it, whether paper can truly hold the weight of trust, or if it's just a dangerous gamble dressed up in fancy stamps. And of course, the old guard aren't going down without a fight. One grizzled merchant, his beard streaked with gray and his hands like cracked leather, scoffs loudly. "Paper can burn," he mutters, jabbing a finger toward the table. "Coins can sink, but they don't turn to ash." Another adds, "What's to stop a clever thief from copying that design, printing his own fortune in his basement?" You can't help but picture it, some enterprising rascal huddled over a block of wood, carving seals by candlelight, grinning as he churns out fake notes like a baker making mooncakes. The thought makes you smile, even as you realize, yeah, that could totally happen. The man at the table doesn't flinch. He simply folds his hands, his gaze steady.
He says, "The emperor has decreed it," as if that's the end of the argument. And in a way, it is. After all, when the most powerful person in the land says a piece of paper has value, who are you to argue? It's like when your mother declares that cabbage soup is the best dinner ever. You can grumble all you want, but you're still going to eat it. As you step away, the scent of incense wafts from a nearby shrine, mixing with the sharper smells of the market, pickled radish, hot oil, and a hint of sandalwood. You feel the weight of the coins in your pouch and wonder for the first time if you might prefer a few crisp slips of paper instead. Maybe you could fold them into a neat little bundle, tuck them into your sleeve, and forget about them for a while. But then again, what if they blew away in the breeze? You glance over your shoulder, watching as the merchants argue, their voices rising and falling like waves. The man at the table sits quietly, his stack of paper money glowing softly in the afternoon light, as if daring the world to change. And as the wind picks up, ruffling the edges of the notes, you wonder, maybe it already has. You leave the square with a strange feeling in your chest, like the world has shifted a little under your feet, but not enough to make you stumble. Just enough to notice. The smell of the market still clings to your clothes. Roasted chestnuts, sour vinegar, a faint whiff of incense. And your fingers itch from handling the rough parchment of those strange new notes. You try to shake it off, but the thought lingers, like a song stuck in your head. You wander toward the docks, where the air feels cooler, the breeze carrying hints of salt and seaweed. Ships creak and sway, their sails catching the wind, and you watch as crates of spices, bolts of silk, and baskets of tea are unloaded by men who look far too tired for such heavy lifting. The sound of coins clinking echoes everywhere, like a chorus of tiny bells. But you notice, here and there, a quiet rustle, that soft, papery sound, almost lost beneath the clang of metal. You follow it, curious, and spot a merchant slipping a folded note into the hands of a sea captain. They nod, barely exchanging words, and the paper disappears into a leather pouch. Just like that. You pause, feeling the pouch of coins at your side again, and it's starting to feel outdated, like showing up to a party in last year's fashion. Still technically acceptable, but just a little off. And yet the docks are full of skeptics. You hear an old sailor grumbling to a younger man, "Paper can't feed your family. Can't patch a sail, can't weigh an anchor." He spits into the water with a grimace, as if trying to rid himself of the very idea. The younger man shrugs, palms up. "But it's easier to carry than a chest of silver, isn't it?" That's the thing, isn't it? Convenience. It has a way of sneaking in, soft and unassuming, until suddenly you realize you can't live without it. Like those little glass bottles of sauce you buy instead of grinding spices by hand. Or that neighbor who started using an umbrella instead of just getting drenched like a real man. You roll your eyes at the memory, but secretly you kinda admire his sense. As you lean against a barrel, watching the tide roll in, a thought strikes you. What if paper money wasn't just for traders and fancy city folk? What if it spread? You imagine farmers tucking crinkled notes in their pockets, street performers slipping a bill into a hat, kids playing shopkeeper with scraps of old paper pretending they're worth something. It's almost absurd, isn't it? And yet,
It's happening.
You overhear two merchants deep in conversation. One of them waves a hand dismissively. It'll never last. People trust silver. Always have, always will. The other nods thoughtfully, but adds, "But silver's heavy, isn't it? And the roads aren't safe." They both fall silent for a moment, watching as a group of men heave a heavy crate onto a ship, their grunts filling the air. The crate shudders, tilts, and with a loud crack, the wood splits, spilling coins everywhere. They scatter across the dock, spinning, bouncing, clinking, like a chorus of mischief. The men curse and scramble to gather them, slipping on wet planks, one nearly falling into the water. You can't help but chuckle quietly. The irony isn't lost on you. All that effort, all that weight, and in the end, the coins spill and scatter like mischievous little gremlins. A breeze picks up, lifting a single slip of paper from a nearby crate, and it flutters past your face, weightless, effortless. You reach out, almost on instinct, and catch it between your fingers. The paper feels smooth, a little worn at the edges, but solid in its own way. There's an official seal stamped in red, and some elegant characters that you can't quite read, but know must mean something important. You fold it carefully and tuck it into your pocket without really thinking, just in case. The sun dips lower, casting long shadows over the docks. The air smells of salt and fish, and somewhere someone's frying something that crackles temptingly in hot oil. Your stomach grumbles, but your mind is elsewhere, tracing the edges of the paper in your pocket, wondering how something so light could carry so much meaning. Maybe the old merchants are right to be wary. Or maybe, just maybe, the world is already shifting, whether anyone wants it to or not. You glance up at the sky, where seagulls wheel lazily, their cries echoing across the water. The coins in the crate shimmer in the fading light, but it's the quiet slip of paper in your pocket that feels like it might just be the future. Night falls gently over the docks, and the market settles into a slower rhythm. The air cools, and the scent of grilled fish drifts lazily between the stalls, mixing with the sharp tang of salt air and the faint sweetness of drying figs. Lanterns flicker to life, their flames dancing in the breeze like little restless spirits. You feel the weight of the day settle into your bones, the ache in your feet like an old friend you didn't invite but can't seem to shake. As you wander, you pass a small tea house tucked between crates and canvas tents, its windows glowing with warm light. Inside, a group of men sit hunched over a low table, the murmur of their conversation blending with the soft clink of porcelain cups. The tea smells earthy, rich, almost floral. You hover in the doorway, listening. "But the emperor's seal," one man says, tracing a fingertip over the edge of a thin paper note. His voice is low, almost reverent. "It's law, isn't it? If the emperor says it has value, then it does." Across from him, a younger man with a skeptical expression leans back, arms crossed. Law or not, it's still just paper. It burns, it tears. What if the ink fades? His voice drips with doubt, like someone inspecting a silk robe and finding a loose thread. A third man, older, with a long, drooping mustache that wiggles when he talks, chimes in, voice gravelly. "It's not the paper, it's the promise. The emperor promises it has value. That's all it is, a promise written down." He sips his tea with a sigh, as if the weight of that promise sits heavy in his cup.
You step inside quietly, taking a seat in the corner. The floor creaks beneath you, and the warmth from the brazier seeps into your legs. You feel the edges of the paper note in your own pocket, hidden beneath your tunic, like a secret you're not sure you're ready to tell. It's strange, isn't it, to think that trust, something so invisible, so fragile, can hold an entire economy together? It's a little like those thin strings of rice noodles you had for dinner once. Delicate, almost breakable, but somehow strong enough to hold up a whole bowl of soup. The conversation at the table drifts into stories. Tales of merchants in distant cities, of coins lost in shipwrecks, of clever traders who carry no metal at all, just folded slips of paper stamped with ink and a prayer. Someone mentions Marco Polo, the foreigner who came and left wide-eyed, babbling about paper money like it was magic. You can almost picture him, tall, sunburned, trying to explain to his friends back home that yes, in this far-off land, people trade with paper. And you imagine the laughter, the disbelief, the jokes about how gullible travelers get after too many cups of rice wine. But even here, not everyone's convinced. There's a woman in the corner, her hair pinned up with a carved comb, who shakes her head slowly. "It's dangerous," she says softly, as if speaking a curse. "Too easy to make more. Too easy to flood the market. The emperor's promise is only good until he changes his mind." And she's not wrong. You think back to stories you've heard about rulers who print too much paper, flooding the market until a single note can't even buy a bowl of rice. There's always a risk, isn't there? That trust will snap like an old rope, fraying under the weight of greed and carelessness. The old man with the mustache chuckles, his eyes crinkling. "Ah, but that's always been the way of money, hasn't it? Coins, paper, it's all the same in the end. Just a promise, wrapped in something shiny." You sip your tea quietly, the warmth spreading through you like a slow tide. The lanterns sway gently, casting shadows on the walls that ripple like water. Outside, the wind whispers through the rigging of ships, the creak of wood and the soft splash of waves filling the night. You feel small in the grand scheme of things, a single person in a world spinning with trade, trust, and the quiet gamble of what holds value. As you finish your tea, you tuck the paper note deeper into your pocket. It feels a little heavier now, doesn't it? Not in weight, but in meaning. A promise, yes. A risk, certainly. But maybe, just maybe, the start of something bigger than anyone sitting in this little tea house could imagine. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of salt and smoke, and you step back into the night. The paper crinkles softly as you walk, and somewhere deep down you wonder, if it all comes down to trust, how long can it hold? You walk slowly through the quiet streets, your feet brushing over worn stones that have seen more footsteps than you can count. The paper note in your pocket feels like a secret, soft, crinkled, almost humming with the weight of possibility. You glance around, half expecting someone to leap from the shadows and demand to see it. But the street is empty, save for a stray cat slinking along a wall, its tail flicking like it knows something you don't. The night is cooler now, the air crisp with the promise of a coming dawn.
You breathe it in, the scent of wood smoke and damp earth filling your lungs. Somewhere in the distance, a bell chimes the hour, and you can't help but think about how time seems to fold in on itself when you're watching the world change. One moment, you're counting coins in a dusty stall, and the next, you're standing in the middle of an idea that could reshape everything. And then you hear it, the faintest whisper of a rumor, carried on the wind like a secret trying to find a home. Two men standing near a shuttered stall, their voices low but urgent. You edge closer, pretending to adjust your sandal, listening. They say the emperor's ordered a new batch of notes, one man mutters, glancing over his shoulder. Bigger ones, worth more than a sack of rice. His companion frowns, arms crossed tight. That's madness. How can you just make more value like that? Shouldn't the silver be somewhere backing it up? The first man shrugs, his voice laced with a mix of awe and fear. They say it's not about the silver anymore. It's about the emperor's word, his promise. And then you hear it again, that word, slipping into the air like a coin dropped into a pond. You can't help but smirk a little. It's like when your neighbor promises to water your plants while you're away, and you come home to find them all wilted and crispy. Promises are easy to make, but harder to keep. And yet, somehow, they hold the world together. At least for now.
You wander past an old shrine, the air thick with the smell of incense and melted wax. The candles flicker, casting long, trembling shadows on the walls. A small offering bowl sits nearby, filled with a few coins and a single folded piece of paper. You pause, staring at it. It's not a coin, not a charm. It's a note. Someone has left a paper promise at a sacred place, as if hoping the gods themselves might honor it. You feel a little shiver crawl up your spine. Is it foolish, or is it the future? You step away, but the thought lingers. The paper in your pocket feels heavier again, as if it's absorbing all the whispers around you. It's strange, isn't it? How something so light, so fragile, can carry the weight of an empire's trust. It makes you wonder, if the emperor's promise is enough to make a scrap of paper valuable, what else could we decide has value? Could we declare that pebbles are precious? That sand is sacred? That the air we breathe is worth its weight in gold? The street narrows, and you find yourself in a cramped alley where the smells of cooking oil and boiled cabbage hang thick in the air. A group of children sit huddled around a little fire, their laughter spilling into the night. One of them holds up a scrap of paper, waving it triumphantly. "I have 100 coins," he shouts, and the others squeal in mock surprise. You can't help but grin. It's just a game, make-believe, like playing shop with pebbles and leaves. But isn't that what money is in the end? A shared game of pretend, as long as everyone agrees to play along. As you move on, the city settles deeper into sleep. The lanterns flicker lower, the fires burn down to embers, and the streets grow quiet except for the soft shuffle of your own steps. You feel the paper in your pocket, warm from your body heat, and you wonder, will this simple, fragile thing endure? Or will it vanish, like so many promises before it? The night holds its breath as you walk,
the future curling softly in the air around you. The sky begins to blush with the softest hint of dawn, a pale ribbon stretching across the horizon. You pause for a moment, watching as the world slowly wakes up. Shopkeepers yawning as they unlatch their doors, the scent of baking bread curling through the air, mingling with the sharper tang of wet stone and the faint metallic hint of the sea. The paper in your pocket feels almost like it's humming now, as if the city itself is vibrating with the tension of old and new, of coins and promises, of weight and whispers. You make your way down a wide street lined with tall wooden buildings, their roofs curling up at the edges like the corners of a sly smile. A group of scholars in faded robes stroll past, their sandals slapping softly against the stones. They're deep in conversation, their voices rising and falling in that particular way scholars do when they're arguing about something they're not entirely sure about. But how can it hold value? One of them says, his brow furrowed so deeply it could plant a seed. Another strokes his beard thoughtfully. It's a symbol, a placeholder, a way to make trade easier across great distances. The first man snorts, waving a hand dismissively. A symbol? Next you'll be telling me we can trade with promises written on clouds. You smile at that, picturing a merchant handing over a puff of air, saying, "This is worth 10 silver coins, I swear." The thought makes you chuckle, but there's a kernel of truth there, isn't there? If everyone agrees to believe in a promise, does it really matter what it's written on? Paper, clouds, even a piece of pottery shaped like a chicken. If the trust is there, the value follows. You drift toward a stall selling scrolls and brushes, the air rich with the smell of ink and bamboo. The shopkeeper is a wiry man with a nose like a hawk and fingers stained black from years of writing. He's telling a story to a young apprentice, his voice smooth as lacquered wood. They say the first paper money was made from mulberry bark, he says, holding up a thin sheet with a flourish. Strong, light, and tricky to counterfeit, unless, of course, you're very clever. The apprentice's eyes go wide. Did people really use it instead of silver? The shopkeeper chuckles, tapping the boy lightly on the forehead. They did, in the capital. The emperor's decree made it so. But out here, in the provinces, people still prefer the weight of coins. It feels more real. You can't buy rice with a rumor.
Ah, there it is again. That stubborn human need for something solid, something that clinks when you drop it. You know the feeling. After all, paper is delicate. A little too much rain and it's ruined. A careless spark from a cooking fire and it's gone in a flash. At least a silver coin can survive a flood, a fire, even a clumsy footstep. Well, unless you manage to step on it in just the right way, which, knowing your luck, you probably would. You run your fingers over the paper in your pocket, wondering about the trees that gave their bark, the hands that pressed it thin, the ink that spelled out promises in delicate brushstrokes. You wonder if the emperor himself ever held one of these notes, his fingertips brushing the surface, imagining the empire shifting under the weight of his decision. Did he feel powerful?
Or did he feel like a man balancing a bowl of soup on a paper plate, hoping it doesn't all collapse in a soggy mess? The shopkeeper's voice lowers, as if sharing a secret. The problem, he says, is that paper multiplies faster than silver. Too many promises, and suddenly the trust breaks. The notes lose their meaning, and people go back to silver. His apprentice frowns, brow furrowed like a crumpled piece of parchment. But what if they don't? The shopkeeper smiles, a little sad, a little wise. Then we'll all be carrying paper, won't we? You step away, the scent of ink lingering in your nose, the weight of the conversation in your chest. The city is stirring now, merchants setting up stalls, chickens clucking indignantly, the occasional clang of a pot dropping in a kitchen. You glance down at your hand, half expecting it to glow with the sheer oddness of what you're holding. A scrap of bark, some ink, a promise, and yet, somehow, a seed of revolution. As the sun edges higher, casting long shadows that stretch like threads across the street, you tuck the note deeper into your pocket and wonder if trust is so fragile. What happens when it breaks? You make your way down a narrow lane where the stones feel smoother underfoot, worn by generations of footsteps. The sun is a little higher now, casting a warm glow over the rooftops, and the air hums with the quiet rustle of a city waking up. Vendors call out softly, offering dumplings and sweet buns, and the scent of sesame oil drifts lazily in the breeze. You catch a glimpse of an old man stirring a pot of porridge, steam rising in soft curls. And for a moment, you wonder if he's ever used paper money to buy his breakfast, or if he still prefers the weighty clink of coins. As you walk, you pass a group of officials gathered under the shade of a tree, their robes crisp, their voices hushed. One holds a sheaf of paper, fanning himself absent-mindedly, while another taps the end of a brush against his palm, deep in thought. You can't hear every word, but snippets float your way like stray feathers on the wind. Ah, yes, the whisters of worry. It's startin', isn't it? That inevitable tug-of-war between freedom and control. The old merchants grumble that paper's too risky. The government frets that it's too easy to forge. And somewhere in between, the people just want to buy rice and fish without hauling around a sack of silver. It's like when everyone in your village starts using a shortcut through a neighbor's field. At first it's convenient, but then someone builds a fence, and suddenly you're arguing about whose cow ate whose turnips. You stop by a stall selling woven baskets, your fingers tracing the rough, scratchy texture of the reeds. The basket seller, a wiry man with a crooked smile, notices the paper peeking from your pocket. His eyes narrow, curious. "One of those new notes, eh?" he asks, tilting his head like a crow sizing up a shiny trinket. You nod, a little self-conscious. The man chuckles, shaking his head. "Too light," he says. "Feels like it could blow away with a sneeze." He leans in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Did you hear about the counterfeiters? Word is, some clever rogue in the South printed a whole batch of fake notes, perfect copies, they say. Traded them for silk and tea before anyone noticed. By the time the officials caught wind, he was halfway across the mountains." You blink, the thought rattling in your head. Counterfeit money. Of course. If you can print something, you can fake it. It's like trying to keep your cousin from sneaking extra sweets at the festival. No matter how many rules you make, someone's always going to find a loophole. The basket seller grins, clearly enjoying the drama. The emperor's cracking down now. New seals, tighter rules. But who knows? A clever man always finds a way. You thank him and move on, your mind buzzing. The paper in your pocket feels different now. Not just light and crinkly, but a little dangerous, like it's holding a secret you're not quite sure you want. The thought of a counterfeiter sitting in a smoky room, carving seals into wood, mixing ink in little clay pots, and laughing quietly as he makes wealth out of nothing. It's unsettling, and yet kind of impressive in a mischievous, rule-bending way. You wonder if there's a little counterfeiter in everyone, someone who wishes they could just print their own luck. As you turn a corner, the street opens up into a bustling square where traders haggle loudly over bolts of fabric, piles of spices, and baskets of dried fish. You see a young woman hand a folded paper note to a spice merchant, and he hesitates just for a second before accepting it. There's a flicker of doubt in his eyes, but also a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could work. And there, in the middle of it all, a man stands on a crate, waving a paper in the air and shouting, "The emperor's word is law. The paper is gold. Trade without fear." His voice booms over the crowd, but you can see the sweat beading on his forehead, the nervous energy in his hands. It's a performance, really. Confidence is half the battle. You pause, watching the scene unfold, and you can't help but wonder, are they building a house of cards, one note at a time? Or is this the start of something that will change the world? The breeze stirs again, carrying the scent of spices and the faintest hint of ink, and you tuck the paper deeper into your pocket, holding it just a little tighter. You don't know where this is all going, not really, but you're here, now, in the middle of it. And for better or worse, the world seems to be leaning towards paper.
The sun climbs higher, chasing shadows across the square, and the city begins to hum with the energy of a new day. The air feels heavier now, a little thicker, as if it's carrying more than just the scent of spices and ink. You hear it in the traders' voices, too, lower, more cautious, like everyone's waiting for something to tip, like the market itself is holding its breath. You stop by a stall selling lacquered boxes, their surfaces gleaming with swirls of red and gold. The merchant is busy arguing with a customer, gesturing at a folded paper note with a mixture of pride and exasperation. "It's official," he insists, tapping the paper with a knobby finger. "The emperor's seal, clear as day. If you don't trust it, you might as well stop trading altogether." The customer crosses his arms, unimpressed. "And what if the seal changes tomorrow, huh? What if they print more and more, and suddenly your paper is worth less than the wood it's written on?" Ah, inflation. That sneaky little word lurking in the shadows, waiting to pounce when no one's looking. You've heard the whispers, haven't you? That if too many notes flood the market, they lose their value. That the more you print, the less each one is worth. It's like trying to stretch a blanket that's too small. Pull it one way, and your toes get cold. Pull it the other, and your shoulders shiver.
No matter how you tug, someone's gonna end up chilly. You drift away, your fingers brushing over a stack of paper notes left unattended on a stall. They feel light, too light almost. You remember that old saying, easy come, easy go. It's funny, isn't it, how paper, which weighs so little, can carry such a heavy load of promises, hopes, and fears. And yet, here you are, carrying one in your pocket like a treasure map. You pass a group of laborers huddled by the well, their hands rough and calloused. They're talking in hushed tones, their voices like low drum beats. They say a man in the South bought a whole shipment of grain with paper, one says, wide-eyed, paid with nothing but ink and bark. Another shakes his head, spitting into the dust. Won't last. The earth doesn't care about paper. You can't plant it, can't eat it. You pause for a moment, watching them, feeling the tension in the air, a tug-of-war between old instincts and new ideas. It's like watching a bridge being built across a river, plank by plank, while half the town stands on one side, arms crossed, insisting it'll never hold. And yet, people are still crossing, aren't they? You wander toward the edge of the square, where an official in fine robes stands beneath a banner that flaps gently in the breeze. His voice rings out over the crowd, smooth as polished jade. By decree of the empire, these notes carry the full weight of the empire. They are valid for all trade, and those who refuse them will face penalties. Ah, there it is, the carrot and the stick, the gentle push and the not-so-gentle shove. It's not just about trust anymore. It's about law, about the emperor's voice echoing across the marketplace, loud and clear. This is the way things are now. Adjust or be left behind. You glance around, watching faces shift, some skeptical, some resigned, some hopeful. A young woman clutches a bundle of silk in one hand and a paper note in the other, her eyes darting nervously between the two, as if trying to decide which one will last longer. A man counts out his coins, then hesitates, slipping a note into the pile with a look of quiet calculation. And a little boy runs by, holding a scrap of paper aloft like a flag, his laughter ringing out, as if the world is light and easy, as if paper really could be magic. And maybe, in a way, it is. You take a slow breath, the smells of the market wrapping around you, tea leaves, warm bread, the faint metallic tang of ink. The paper in your pocket feels different now. Not just a curiosity, not just a risk, but a part of something bigger, a current you've been swept into, whether you wanted to or not. And as you step away, the sound of voices, coins, and fluttering paper fading into the background, you can't help but wonder, will this hold? Or will it all collapse like a house built on sand, one gust of wind away from ruin? The breeze tugs at the corners of your clothes, cool and insistent, as if whispering, only time will tell. You wander through the city as the day stretches on, the sun climbing higher, casting sharp shadows along the walls. The streets buzz with a strange mixture of energy, part excitement,
part unease. You can feel it, can't you? The quiet tug-of-war between the weight of old coins and the flutter of crisp, ink-stamped paper. It's like the city itself is holding its breath, waiting to see which will tip the scales. You pause at a stall selling dried herbs, the scent of mint and camphor thick in the air. A woman, her hair streaked with silver, counts out a bundle of cinnamon sticks, glancing nervously at the paper note the merchant offers in change. She hesitates just for a moment, but then tucks it into her sleeve with a soft sigh. That sigh says it all, doesn't it? A mixture of hope and resignation, like when you finally agree to try your friend's strange new cooking recipe, knowing full well it might end in disaster. But what's the harm in trying? As you stroll on, you catch snippets of conversation that drift through the streets like threads on the breeze. They say the emperor is watching for counterfeiters. He's sent inspectors across the provinces. I heard they're marking new notes with special ink, only seen under candlelight. Bah, it's all tricks. A coin is a coin. Paper burns. And yet, despite the grumbling, the paper notes are slipping into more and more hands. You see it everywhere now, tucked into ledgers, folded inside sleeves, passed quietly between merchants like whispered secrets. It's a little like watching a river change course. Slow at first, almost imperceptible, but soon the water flows in a new direction, carrying everything with it. You wander into a small tea house where the air is warm and fragrant, filled with the scent of roasted barley and faint traces of sandalwood. A group of scholars sit at a low table, cups steaming before them, their robes neat but slightly rumpled. They speak in soft, measured tones, the kind of voices that sound like they've been debating the same point for hours. One man gestures with a brush, his fingers stained black with ink. It's not just money, he says, eyes narrowed. It's a symbol of the emperor's will. That's what gives it power. Another leans back, arms folded. Symbols can fade. Ink can smear. What happens when people stop believing? The first man shrugs, a slow, deliberate movement. Then it all crumbles, like a scroll left in the rain. You sip your tea quietly, letting their words settle in your mind. It's funny, isn't it, how so much of the world rests on belief, on the fragile idea that this paper, this promise, has meaning, that it can buy you rice or silk or a warm meal at a tea house. Without that shared belief, it's just fibers and ink. The same could be said of so many things, couldn't it? Borders, laws, even time itself. A shared agreement, held together by trust. A waiter passes by, carrying a tray of tea, and you notice a slip of paper tucked under the edge, thin, worn, but still legible. It flutters as he moves, like a small bird trying to take flight. And you wonder how many of these little paper birds are out there now, fluttering between hands, carrying the weight of the emperor's promise. You leave the tea house and step back into the sunlight, blinking against the brightness. The city feels different now, livelier perhaps, or maybe just more tangled. Paper notes drift on the breeze, catching on doorways,
skittering across cobblestones like dry leaves. Children chase 'em, giggling, their laughter rising into the air like a song. And somewhere, in the midst of all this, you catch a quiet thought that makes you pause. If the emperor's promise holds, this could change everything. Trade, wealth, power, all reshaped by a few sheets of paper. But if it falters, well, let's just say, you wouldn't want to be holding a fistful of promises when the wind changes. You slip the paper in your pocket a little deeper, pressing it close. It's strange, isn't it, how something so light can feel so heavy. The afternoon sun slants low, casting long shadows across the city streets. You find yourself weaving through alleys where the air smells of roasted peanuts and faintly of damp stone. The paper in your pocket feels warm now, like it's soaked up the day's heat, a little crumpled at the edges, softening with every step you take. It's odd, isn't it, how something so flimsy can start to feel like a companion, always there, tucked against your side. As you pass a workshop, the sound of hammering fills the air, sharp, rhythmic, like a heartbeat made of metal. Inside, men shape iron into tools, sweat gleaming on their brows. One of them pauses to wipe his hands on a rag, then pulls a folded note from the wall, pinned there like a charm, its edges curling from the heat. He smooths it carefully and tucks it into a small wooden box, as if it's a precious thing, something worth saving. Outside, a group of children play a game with sticks and stones, their laughter spilling into the street. One of them clutches a scrap of paper, waving it triumphantly as if it's a royal decree. Another snatches it away, holding it up to the sun, squinting as if he can read the secrets hidden in the ink. They argue over its value, their voices rising like the chatter of sparrows. And you can't help but smile. It's all a bit absurd, isn't it? This idea that a few strokes of ink can stand in for a bag of rice or a bundle of silk. And yet, here we are. You keep walking, and the city hums around you. Merchants haggle over prices, some slapping coins onto the table with a satisfying clink, others sliding folded notes across with a quiet rustle. You overhear one man complain that his note smells funny, like damp bamboo, while another grumbles that the ink stains his fingers. Someone jokes that soon they'll be trading in feathers and dreams if this keeps up. A little laugh bubbles up in your chest, because really, who's to say we won't? After all, money is just an idea we all decided to believe in. You pause by a cart selling roasted chestnuts, the vendor fanning the coals, his face flushed with heat. He waves a note at a customer, insisting it's as good as silver. The customer hesitates, fingers twitching, before finally nodding and handing over a small bag of nuts. It's a tiny moment, but you catch it. The way the vendor's shoulders sag with relief, the customer's quiet sigh, the way both seem to hold their breath for just a second, as if waiting to see if the world will keep turning.
And it does, of course. The world doesn't pause for doubt. The world rolls forward, slow and steady, like a cart on a dusty road. And you, caught in its wheels, can't help but feel small and a little in awe, and maybe a bit nervous too. You slip your hand into your pocket, feeling the worn edges of the paper, the faint ridges of the seal pressed into it. It's strange how much weight can sit in something so light. You wonder about the hands that made it. Someone dipping a brush into black ink, the scent sharp and slightly bitter. Someone stamping the seal with a firm, practiced motion. Someone drying the paper on a rack, watching as it stiffens in the sun, waiting for the ink to settle. You picture the emperor, seated high in his palace, robes heavy with gold thread, watching it all unfold with a gaze as steady as the mountains. Does he know what he started? Can he feel the ripple spreading outward, each note a pebble tossed into the pond of the empire? The paper crinkles softly in your pocket as you move, a quiet reminder that you're part of this story now, whether you like it or not. A breeze stirs, lifting a loose scrap of paper into the air, sending it tumbling down the street like a playful ghost. You watch it drift, twisting and turning, before it settles in a puddle and begins to dissolve at the edges. And you think, maybe that's the real risk, isn't it? Not just that the paper will tear or burn, but that it might simply disappear, melt away, like a dream you can't quite remember when you wake up. But for now, the paper holds. For now, the game goes on.
The sky turns a soft, hazy gold as the sun begins its slow descent, casting everything in a warm, forgiving light. You feel it on your skin, that gentle glow, like the world is trying to smooth out its rough edges for a little while. The city seems quieter now, as if it's taken a long breath and is exhaling slowly, waiting for the evening to settle in. You pass a row of shops, their wooden signs creaking softly in the breeze. A tailor is sweeping his doorway, the soft swish of the broom matching the quiet rustle of a paper note fluttering at his feet. He picks it up, frowns at the faded ink, and tucks it into a jar with a sigh. His fingers linger on the rim, like he's not quite sure whether he's saving treasure or just scraps. You pause, watching him, and the thought strikes you. How much of life is just that? A guessing game between what's valuable and what's just clutter. Like that drawer in your kitchen, full of random bits and bobs. An old key that doesn't fit any door, a coin from a far-off land, a button you swear you'll sew back onto your shirt one day. And yet, somehow, you can't bring yourself to throw any of it away. Because what if? The tailor's broom sweeps again, a little sharper this time, sending dust and a stray chestnut shell skittering across the stones. The paper in your pocket crinkles softly, as if reminding you it's still there, still waiting for you to decide what it's really worth. You keep walking, and the streets begin to shift around you. A man leans against a wall, his face half hidden by the shadow of his hat, flipping a paper note between his fingers like a magician with a deck of cards. He glances up as you pass, eyes sharp, a flicker of something you can't quite read in his gaze. Doubt, maybe, or quiet calculation. Or maybe he's just wondering if you'll drop your paper so he can snatch it up and buy himself a bowl of noodles.
You turn a corner and find a small group gathered around a storyteller, his voice rising and falling like a tide. The crowd leans in, eyes wide, hanging on every word. They say, the man intones, his hands gesturing like a magician's, that the emperor's notes hold a secret ink, an invisible thread woven through each paper, seen only under the right light. He pauses, letting the idea settle, then leans closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Some say the notes carry the emperor's blessing itself, a charm, a protection. Others say it's a curse, waiting to unravel. A woman gasps softly, clutching the edge of her shawl. A boy giggles, tugging at his father's sleeve, while the man beside him mutters something about fairy tales and nonsense. But you stand there, listening, feeling the weight of that paper in your pocket grow a little heavier. Because it's not just a note anymore, is it? It's a story, a symbol, a little piece of a much bigger, messier, and frankly a bit ridiculous game. And yet, here you are, still carrying it, still believing in it, sort of. You drift away from the crowd, the storyteller's voice fading behind you like a dream you're not sure you want to wake from. The sky deepens to a dusky pink, and the lanterns start to flicker to life, their warm glow softening the lines of the world. You catch the scent of roasted chestnuts again, mingling with the sharper tang of vinegar and the earthy undertone of damp stone. It's funny, isn't it, how some things stay the same? Smells, stories, the way the light falls at the end of the day. And yet, here you are, walking through a world that feels like it's teetering on the edge of something new. Paper, ink, promises, all of it as fragile as a dream, and yet, somehow, holding. The paper in your pocket crackles as you shift your weight, and you think, maybe it's not about whether it lasts forever. Maybe it's about whether it lasts long enough to matter. The lanterns sway gently in the breeze, their paper skins glowing like soft little moons against the darkening sky. You walk slowly now, feet scuffing along the stones, the sounds of the market fading into a gentle hum behind you. The paper in your pocket feels warm, almost alive, like it's been absorbing the whispers of the day, the hopes and doubts, and the quiet pulse of change. It's strange, isn't it, how something so light can carry so much weight. You turn a corner and find yourself near the old city gate, its heavy wooden beams dark with age, the iron bolts streaked with rust. A man sits nearby on a low stool, his fingers busy folding paper into shapes, cranes, fish, little boats. They pile up at his feet like a quiet army of delicate creatures, each one trembling slightly in the breeze. He looks up at you with a grin that's all crooked teeth and crinkled eyes. "Paper's a funny thing, isn't it?" he says, holding up a tiny bird that flutters in his hand. "Fold it one way, it's art. Fold it another, it's money. Fold it the wrong way, and it's nothing but trash." You nod, not sure what to say, because, well, he's not wrong. He offers you the paper bird with a wink, and you take it, feeling the edges soft against your fingers. It's light, almost too light, like it might take off on its own if you're not careful. You tuck it into your pocket alongside the note, and now you're carrying two little paper things, one that might buy you a meal,
the other that's just a bird. And in a way, they're not so different, are they? Both only have value because someone says they do. You keep walking, and the city feels quieter now, as if it's settling in for the night. The energy of the day curling up like a cat by the fire. You pass a group of young men sitting on the steps of a temple, their laughter soft and easy. One of them holds up a paper note and fans himself dramatically. "Look at me," he says, grinning. The others laugh, but there's a thread of nervousness underneath it, like they're not quite sure whether to believe it or not. One of them mutters, "Until the emperor changes his mind," and they all fall silent for a moment, the weight of that thought hanging in the air like smoke.
You feel it too, that quiet fear, that what's here today could be gone tomorrow. It's like when you find the perfect pair of sandals and they fit just right, and then the next time you go back to the market, they're gone, and no one knows if they'll ever be made again. You stop at a little stall selling roasted sweet potatoes, the smell warm and inviting. The vendor, an older woman with kind eyes and soot-smudged hands, waves a paper note at you. "These are worth more than gold," she says with a wink, and you can't help but smile. You buy one, the skin crisp and smoky, the flesh soft and sweet, and as you bite into it, you think, maybe she's right. Maybe, just for a moment, this little piece of paper is worth more than gold, or at least more than a bag of heavy coins that dig into your side and make your belt sag awkwardly. The paper in your pocket crinkles softly as you move, like it's reminding you that it's still there, still waiting. And you think, funny, isn't it, how something so small can feel like the hinge on which the whole world might turn. The lanterns flicker in the growing dark, casting soft pools of light that stretch and bend as you walk. And for a moment, it feels like you're floating through a dream, half real, half something else entirely. You pause, the sweet taste of roasted potato lingering on your tongue, and wonder, when the sun rises tomorrow, will this paper still hold its promise? Or will it all blow away like the paper cranes at the man's feet, carried off on the next breeze? But for now, the paper holds. And so do you. The night settles fully now, like a soft blanket draped over the city, muffling the sharp edges of the day. Lanterns glow like tiny stars, and the streets empty out, leaving behind only the quiet shuffle of feet, the creak of wooden shutters, and the distant echo of a dog barking at the moon. The air feels cooler, brushing against your skin like a whisper, and you pull your sleeves a little tighter around you. The paper in your pocket rustles, a small sound in the vastness of the evening. And you wonder, has it changed? Grown heavier with meaning? Or perhaps lighter, like it's slipping into the fabric of the world around you? You pass a group of laborers sharing a meal on the steps of a warehouse, bowls of rice balanced in their hands. Their laughter is soft, the kind that lingers, woven into the night like threads of warm silk. One of them pulls out a paper note, holding it up to the firelight, turning it this way and that, as if hoping to find some secret hidden in the fibers. "It's just paper," one man says, shaking his head, though there's a hint of doubt in his voice. "Can't plant it, can't eat it. What good is it?" The man holding the note smiles, a slow, thoughtful grin. "Ah, but you can trade it for rice, for tea, for a night at the inn, or maybe a warm smile from the girl at the noodle shop. He waves the note gently, and it flutters like a moth, catching the firelight in a way that feels almost magical. You watch them for a moment, their conversation a quiet hum in the background, and it makes you think, maybe that's all money ever was. A little magic trick, a shared agreement that this means that, a promise written on paper or carved into metal or whispered across a market stall. And if everyone believes in it, well, maybe that's enough. You move on, the street growing narrower, the buildings leaning in as if eavesdropping on your thoughts. The scent of wood smoke drifts through the air, mingling with the sharper tang of dried herbs and the faint sweetness of honey. Somewhere nearby, a musician plays a soft tune on a flute, the notes curling into the night like tendrils of steam from a kettle.
You pause, letting the sound wash over you, and the paper in your pocket feels almost like it's vibrating, resonating with the music, the city, the pulse of something shifting quietly beneath it all. It's funny, isn't it? How you started the day thinking of money as something solid, heavy, clinking in your pouch, and now, here you are, carrying a scrap of paper that somehow feels like it might float away or change the world. You pass a small courtyard where an old man sits beneath a tree, carving a piece of wood with a slow, steady hand. The shavings curl at his feet like whispers, and he glances up as you pass. His eyes crinkle, and he nods toward your pocket. "Careful with that," he says, his voice soft, almost amused. "Paper has a way of making you think it's more than it is." He chuckles quietly, then adds, "or less." You smile, unsure how to respond, and keep walking, the weight of his words following you like a shadow. The paper in your pocket is just that, paper. And yet, it holds stories now. Your story, the merchant's story, the emperor's story, the story of a city trying to figure out what it means to trust something so light, so fragile. You pause at a bridge, watching the water slip by below, dark, smooth, endless. You wonder how many stories have passed this way, how many coins have clinked into the depths, how many paper notes have fluttered into the current, lost to the tide. And you think, maybe that's the trick. The paper doesn't have to last forever. It just has to last long enough for someone to believe in it. The breeze brushes your face, cool and soft, and you feel the paper shift slightly in your pocket, a quiet reminder that, for now at least, the promise holds. The stars begin to peek through the darkening sky, faint pinpricks of silver against a deep, endless blue. The moon, a slender crescent, hangs low like a soft smirk, as if it's been watching all this unfold and can't quite decide whether to be amused or concerned. The city has quieted, the hum of the market fading into the background, replaced by the softer sounds of the night, footsteps echoing on stone, the distant clatter of a pot being scrubbed, a baby's cry drifting through an open window before being soothed into silence. You walk slowly now, your steps matching the rhythm of the world around you. The paper in your pocket is warm against your side, almost as if it's absorbed the day's stories, the laughter, the doubts, the quiet arguments over value and trust. It feels strange, doesn't it? that a thin, crinkled scrap of bark and ink can carry so much weight. And yet, here it is, still holding together, still holding meaning, for now. You pass a row of closed stalls, their shutters drawn tight like eyelids at rest. A stray dog trots by, nose twitching, ears perked, as if even it is curious about the paper you carry. You smile at the thought. Would a dog trade a scrap of paper for a bone? Probably not. A dog knows what's real, what fills the belly and soothes the hunger. Maybe we're the foolish ones, spinning stories out of symbols, building castles in the air, and hoping they don't crumble when the wind shifts. You hear a quiet conversation from a nearby courtyard, voices low and cautious. Two men sit on a stone bench, their heads close together, one holding a note between his fingers, turning it over like a puzzle. They say the inks mixed with a rare powder makes it harder to forge, one murmurs, his tone edged with curiosity and a hint of envy. The other snorts. Doesn't matter. If they print too many, it's all worthless anyway. That's the fear, isn't it? That the more there is, the less it's worth. Like pouring too much water into soup. It stretches thin, loses its flavor. You think of the man selling roasted chestnuts, the woman at the herb stall, the old tailor tucking notes into his jar. They're all part of this delicate dance, aren't they? Balancing on a tightrope of hope, squinting into the future, wondering if the bridge will hold, or if it all collapse beneath their feet. You pass a group of scholars clustered under a lamplight, their scrolls unrolled like maps of the universe. One points at a diagram, inked lines tracing the flow of trade routes across provinces. His finger taps a symbol, a tiny mark representing paper notes. They argue quietly, voices weaving in and out of the night air, as if they're debating the threads of destiny itself. You pause, listening, the words slipping into your mind like mist. It's not the paper that holds value, one says, voice calm, steady. It's the emperor's promise. A pause. And if the promise breaks? Someone else asks softly. Another pause, a long one. And then, quietly, then the paper is just paper. You feel that settle in your chest, like a stone dropping into a still pond. The ripples spread slowly, and you wonder, how long before the ripples reach the edges? How long before the promise starts to fray? The breeze picks up, cool and carrying the scent of night jasmine and damp earth. It brushes against your face, tugs at the edges of your sleeves, and makes the paper in your pocket flutter softly, like a bird shifting its wings in a nest. It's a small sound, but it feels loud in the quiet of the street, a reminder that this story is still unfolding. You glance up at the stars, feeling small and slightly ridiculous for thinking a piece of paper could hold the weight of an empire. But isn't that the trick of it? That we choose to believe in these things, whether it's toys, paper, or the shimmer of stars themselves. You take a slow breath, the air cool and a little sharp, and you think, for tonight, at least, the paper holds. And you hold it too. The night deepens, folding over the city like a soft blanket, and the sounds of the day fade into a gentle hush. You walk a little slower now, the cool stones beneath your feet smooth and familiar. A soft breeze drifts past, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke, dried fish, and something sweet. Maybe roasted chestnuts again, or perhaps the last crumbs of a festival long packed away. The paper in your pocket is a quiet weight, a reminder of the day's stories clinging to its fibers. You pass a low wall where a group of old men sit in the moonlight, their voices low and easy, like a well-worn tune hummed from memory. One of them, his hair a wild cloud of white, holds up a paper note and squints at it as if it might blink back at him. "It's a promise, isn't it?" he mutters, tapping the note against his palm. "But promises are slippery things." Another man laughs softly, the sound crackling like dry leaves. "Tell that to my wife. She promised we'd only buy 1 jar of plum wine, and now the cellar's full." They chuckle, their voices blending with the chirp of crickets and the distant creak of a cartwheel turning slowly in the dark. It's a simple moment, but it settles into you, warm and a little bittersweet. The paper feels softer in your pocket, as if it's been listening, absorbing the laughter, the doubts, the quiet resilience of people who've seen a lot and expect to see even more. You keep moving, the stones cool under your soles, and pass a shrine tucked between 2 buildings, its lantern flickering low. A young woman kneels there, her hands folded, a note pressed between her palms like a prayer. Her lips move silently, and you wonder what she's asking for. Maybe a safe journey for a loved one. Maybe a good harvest. Maybe just enough trust for the paper in her hands to mean something tomorrow. You stop for a moment, watching her, the paper in your pocket pressing gently against your side like a heartbeat. It feels strange, doesn't it? How paper, something so thin, so easy to tear, can carry so many hopes. But then again, isn't that what paper's always been? A letter from a friend, a contract signed with shaking hands, a poem written in the dark when sleep won't come.
And you realize it's never really about the paper itself. It's about what we put into it, the meaning, the trust, the belief that this scrap of bark and ink is worth a sack of rice, or a bundle of silk, or maybe even just a moment of peace beneath the stars. You glance up, and the sky feels endless tonight, so full of stars it almost hums with quiet energy. The moon glows softly, like a watchful eye keeping an old secret. You wonder how many paper notes have passed under its light, how many promises have been made and broken beneath its gaze, and how many more will come, because, let's be honest, humans aren't exactly great at learning from the past. Your steps slow, the sound of your sandals brushing gently against the stones. A cat darts across the street, its eyes flashing in the dark, and somewhere in the distance, a bell tolls softly, marking the passing hours. The paper in your pocket shifts with your movement, whispering a reminder,
Promises may be fragile, but for tonight, at least, they hold. And so do you. The city seems to hold its breath in the early hours before dawn, when the streets are mostly empty and the air feels softer, like a whisper you're not meant to hear. You walk quietly now, your footsteps echoing just a little too loudly in the stillness. The paper in your pocket crinkles with each step, a small sound that feels bigger in the hush of the night. You pass a baker's shop, the shutters close tight, but the scent of rising dough seeps into the air, warm and faintly sweet. Your stomach gives a quiet, hopeful grumble, and you can't help but wonder if the baker accepts paper notes yet, or if he still prefers the clink of a coin dropped into a wooden box. A few stray dogs lie curled up near the doorway, their tails twitching in their sleep, and you think, well, at least they don't care about paper or silver. All they need is a scrap of food and a warm patch of sunlight. Maybe we're the fools for making it all so complicated. You find yourself near the city's southern gate now, where a few wagons are lined up, their drivers asleep beneath rough blankets. A guard stands nearby, his spear resting against the wall, the tip catching a glint of moonlight. He yawns, stretching his arms, and you notice a folded note tucked behind his belt, the edges worn soft by use. Even the guards are carrying them now, it seems, trading in paper promises while watching the world turn. It's funny, isn't it, how quickly something new becomes normal. Just a few months ago, the idea of paying with paper would have been laughable, like trying to buy a horse with a drawing of an apple. And now, here you are, tucking that same kind of paper into your pocket like it's a shield, a tool, a key to a world that feels like it's shifting beneath your feet. You pause by a fountain where the water trickles lazily over smooth stones, the sound soft and steady, like the world's slow heartbeat. Someone has left a paper note there, half soaked, the ink bleeding into strange, soft patterns, like a map of rivers drawn by an absent-minded god. It's just lying there, wet and forgotten, and you wonder if it was lost or abandoned. Maybe it slipped from a merchant's sleeve in the dark, or maybe someone gave up on it entirely, deciding the promise wasn't worth the paper it was printed on. You leave it there, a little reluctant to touch it, almost like it might crumble to dust in your fingers. Or maybe, just maybe, it'll dry in the morning sun and find its way back into someone's hands, ready for another chance at meaning. The breeze stirs, cool against your face, and you shiver slightly, pulling your robe a little tighter. The paper in your pocket feels dry, safe, intact. You pat it absently, like a nervous habit, and wonder how many others are doing the same right now. Traders, guards, cooks, scholars, each one carrying a little folded piece of the emperor's promise, hoping it'll still hold when the next sunrise comes. And then you remember the tailor, the chestnut seller, the old man folding paper cranes, the children chasing notes like butterflies, all of them tangled together in this strange, delicate web of trust, hope, and maybe just a touch of foolishness. It's a little ridiculous, isn't it? How we spin entire lives around pieces of paper. And yet, what else is there? The stars above seem to shimmer with quiet amusement, and the moon hangs low, as if it knows a secret you don't. The paper in your pocket rustles softly as you shift your weight, and you think, for all its flaws, its risks, its absurdity, you're glad it's there, for now.
The horizon begins to glow faintly. the first whispers of dawn curling over the rooftops like warm breath on a chilly windowpane. The city stirs in its sleep, soft footsteps in distant alleys, the creak of cartwheels, the faint clatter of a pot being set over a fire. You walk slower now, your body heavy with the quiet, your mind drifting like the low-hanging fog that clings to the streets. The paper in your pocket feels almost weightless, yet somehow more present than ever. It's strange, isn't it? How something so fragile can feel like a thread running through everything. The vendors, the guards, the scholars, the children chasing notes in the streets. Even the cats, lounging lazily in the eaves, seem to blink slowly at the thought of it. Maybe they understand the silliness of it all. Or maybe they just want fish. You pause by a small food stall just beginning to open for the day. The owner stretching and yawning as he stacks baskets of steamed buns. The smell is warm and comforting, doughy and a little sweet. You ask the price out of habit, and without missing a beat, he holds out his hand, palm open, ready for a note. You hesitate, fingers brushing over the crinkled paper in your pocket, then hand it over. He glances at it, nods, and tucks it into a jar, as if it's the most natural thing in the world. No questions, no second glances. You accept the bun, warm in your hands, and bite into it, the soft bread yielding to a savory filling, sweet and sticky. It tastes like home somehow, like the world, for all its shifting and its risks, still has small joys tucked into the corners. The stall owner wipes his hands on his apron and hums quietly to himself. A simple tune, the kind that settles into your bones. And you think, this is how it happens, isn't it? Little by little. A note for a bun, a note for a spool of thread, a note for a night's rest. The threads of trust weaving themselves into the fabric of daily life, until one day you forget there was ever a time when it was different. You wander further, past a group of traders unloading sacks of rice, their laughter light in the morning air. A boy runs past, a paper note clutched in his fist like a treasure, his feet slapping on the stones. Someone calls after him, maybe a brother, maybe a friend, and the boy just grins, holding the paper high above his head like a flag. You smile, a little breath of amusement slipping out, and the paper in your pocket seems to settle a bit, as if it's finally made peace with itself. You glance up at the sky, soft blue, streaked with pale pink, and wonder if the emperor is awake yet, sipping tea in his grand chamber, watching the city stir beneath him. Does he think about the promises he's made, the weight of them, the paper with his seal drifting through the hands of merchants, guards, farmers, and dreamers? Or is he already thinking about something new? Another decree, another plan, another layer of trust to build. You take another bite of your bun, the warmth filling you from the inside out, and you think, maybe it doesn't matter. The world turns, the markets open, and the paper passes from hand to hand, carrying with it the quiet hope that tomorrow will be just a little bit better than today. And for now, the paper holds, and so do you. The morning sun stretches across the city, soft and golden, casting long shadows that reach like lazy fingers over the rooftops. The streets buzz gently now, carts creaking, voices rising in soft greetings, the clatter of pots and pans as the kitchens begin to stir. The world feels lighter somehow, as if it's taking a slow breath, holding it just a little, then letting it out in a long, warm sigh. The paper in your pocket feels soft now, worn by your fingers and the rhythm of your steps. It's just paper after all, fibers pressed thin, ink brushed across its surface. And yet, it's more than that, isn't it? It's a little piece of a promise tucked into the folds of your life. A fragile thing, sure, but then again, aren't we all? You stop by a fruit stall, its baskets piled high with plums and pears that gleam in the morning light. The vendor, a broad-shouldered man with a laugh that rumbles like distant thunder, is already haggling with a customer over the price of a melon. His voice rises, and you hear it, that familiar phrase slipping through the air like a note in a song. 2 notes for the lot. Paper's good here. The customer hesitates, glances around, then nods, slipping the folded notes into the man's hand. The transaction feels normal. No one gasps, no one protests, just a quiet, simple trade. You move on, passing an elderly woman sitting cross-legged on a woven mat, her hands busy weaving a basket. A few notes are tucked under a stone beside her, held in place against the breeze. She hums softly as she works, the melody old and worn, like a story told and retold until it settles into the bones of a place. The scent of fresh bread drifts from a nearby bakery, mixing with the sharper tang of pickled vegetables and the faint trace of smoke from a street cook's brazier. The city moves in slow circles, the paper notes drifting between hands like petals on a stream. You pause, watching it all unfold. A guard at the corner counts out a few notes, folding them into a ledger. A scholar leans over a book, a paper pressed between the pages like a pressed flower, marking a moment in time. A child tucks a note into a small jar, whispering something under their breath, maybe a wish, maybe a promise. And you think, it's not really about the paper, is it? It's about the stories we tell ourselves. That this little scrap of bark and ink means something. That we can trade it for food, for cloth, for safety. That we can fold it into the pockets of our lives and trust it to hold. The sun is higher now, warming the stones beneath your feet. You take a slow breath, filling your lungs, and you think, for now, the paper holds. And so do you.